Hello, my name is Emily Hendrickson, and today we are going to be exploring the evidence, implications, and political ramifications of a litigation explosion. So first, let's define what litigation is. According to Cornell's Legal Information Institute, litigation refers to the broad process of resolving dispute by filing or answering a complaint through the public court system. The term litigation explosion refers to the perception that the U.S. court system has experienced a massive increase in lawsuits, leading to the belief that the legal system is overburdened and society is becoming overly litigious. So let's go over some prevalent case types that civilians tend to pursue. One of the most common case types pursued are personal injury suits. Some examples are medical malpractice claims, injuries sustained in motor vehicle accidents, workplace injuries, or injuries caused by defective products, also known as product liability suits. Contract disputes are another common case type that stems from when one party fails to fulfill their contractual obligations, leading to lawsuits for damages. Class actions are a broader case type that involve a large group of people suing an organization for damages they have all suffered. Examples include environmental harm that cause medical issues, defective products, or data breaches. Now let's go over some statistical data concerning the number of lawsuits from 2012 to 2023. Starting in 2012, the U.S. recorded an incredibly high number of court cases, totaling approximately 97.6 million across federal and state courts. Over the next few years, there was a gradual decline in total cases. By 2013, this number decreased slightly to 95.8 million, before falling annually, reaching 84.6 million by 2017. In recent years, the number of cases filed in the U.S. has been increasing, with 68.5 million in 2023. In comparison, there were 61.5 million cases in 2020 and 64.3 million in 2021. Now, it is important to realize that the amount of court cases filed is not an accurate reflection of how many trials or hearings occur in the courts. Most lawsuits end with settlements, so many of the millions of cases will never go to trial. Is the term litigation explosion justifiable? In other words, is it valid to call an increase in court cases a litigation explosion? In short, there is no definitive answer among legal scholars, but in my opinion, it is not justifiable. My reasoning comes from the data seen on the previous slides. For example, comparing the nearly 100 million annual case filings of 2012 with the 68.5 million in 2023. While case filings decreased drastically during the pandemic and are currently on the rise, I do not think the increase warrants the term a litigation explosion. As with any controversial topic, there are always proponents and critics. In other words, there are people who will benefit and those who will not. Here are some groups that would be advantaged by perceptions of a litigation explosion. Insurance companies use the narrative of increasing lawsuits and higher payouts to justify raising premiums. Their main reform pushes for caps on damages, thus limiting the amount one can receive if awarded a payout. Businesses benefit as the perception is used to argue for reforms that limit them from expensive or meaningless lawsuits. If granted, these reforms would limit corporate accountability, reduce the cost of doing business by skirting safety measure implementations, and continue practice with less financial risk from litigation. Lastly, conservative policymakers can benefit from the perceived concept of litigation explosion by using the narrative to push their agendas and reformative ideas, often resulting in more political traction and funding for themselves. Johnston 2007 writes that increased litigation affects a broad range of people and industries, claiming that studies reveal that professionals in various sectors, such as health and law, worry about shielding themselves from the burden of lawsuits and litigation and practice defensively. While we can't possibly know the entire extent of increases in litigation nationwide, let's look at some specific groups who are disadvantaged by litigation explosion. Consumers and plaintiffs somewhat go together, as they are simply interchangeable terms for the same person. Tort reforms, such as damage caps, limit their ability to recover full compensation in the event of injury, losses, or wrongdoing. Additionally, lawsuits require much work and evidence gathering, leading to a lengthy litigation process that disinterests many potential plaintiffs. Johnston 2007 proposes an interesting solution to the litigation problem. He states that the U.S. could switch from the American rule of suit, which imposes the responsibility of each litigant to bear their own legal expenses, and adopt the British rule of suit, which introduces a loser pays rule. In other words, it's a shifting of fees. However, he also claims that this solution limits access to courts and prioritizes the wealthy over the poor. In the end, it's a conundrum that future generations will have to navigate. Trial lawyers are another group disadvantaged by a litigation explosion. An increase in litigation results in larger caseloads for every trial lawyer. Furthermore, tort reforms that push for lower contingency fees reduce a lawyer's incentive to take on lengthy, complex cases. And then these are my 3 references. Thank you.